Chilly here with Sirius Telus Moon. This is Mars Hour Mars Day, and the Mars is 6 degrees Capricorn in the 6th house with Saturn in the 8th house, 25 degrees Pisces. Mars is ruling over the midheaven that's conjoining Chiron and Aries, and the ascendant is ruled by the Sun, also at 2 degrees Capricorn. Now, I began to look at the reassembling of Standard Oil, and there is a limit to how many episodes I can put to halt on whether I release or not regarding that. So I'll begin with releasing the previous episode. And I want to talk about the disassembling of Standard Oil in 1911 and what it tells us around Neptune, Saturn in Aries, because one of the ways in which Standard Oil was brought to scrutiny was that there was a competing company that simply gave choice to people, which Standard Oil didn't. Now, what do you think people are going to want the most when Saturn ruling over Pluto conjoins Neptune in 0 degree Aries 70? How is sovereignty decided in terms of Saturn? How do we say choice without saying choice? Severing a monopole. It is not creating one. So, now the previous Standard Oil dissolution was not really okay. I do want to think about something more. I actually like this one for the think I'm gonna go with that one. I think the message is pretty obvious with this one. Lion, not Lion. It's Lion. I know it's Lion. But the thing is that any company, in fact, if I had the money to have a company, I would have the least of evil type of oil production company that gives people the choice of whether to go to Standard Oil or not. Now, oil is, I would never open an oil company because we don't need oil. We live oil. We need essential oil. We don't need oil. In fact, the only thing that would necessitate oil is slavery-based industries. It is, Leon. We have free energy before Nikola Tesla. And The only thing that oil does at this point is polluting the water and enabling people to make water an essential that is missing. Okay, the way they did with housing, which makes food scarcity and creates way more dependence, slavery, and control than is good for anyone. Because on the competition, when the competition to power is that fierce, anybody would go algorithm in a second, a split of a second. Think about it. If a person doesn't know that they would be given a glass of water if they ask, and you need water, would they ask for a glass of water, risking being trafficked, kidnapped, controlled, or would they kill for a glass of water? That's the off with their heads. That's the guillotine o'clock. And they know that if they kill, they are useful to those that do killing. Whereas any other option would leave them not being able to absorb the water, being too stressed to drink the water, not having suffice water. And this is basically when we are reforesting the Sahara that makes the rain fall. And we can collect the water and we don't even need, and we have the best water. And nobody actually needs oil. Like that. Okay, so that entire conglomerate is built of nothing but ritual satanic abuse of children that abuse children and are abused by children, are abused by adults that were the children, and it the only and humanity will only have itself to blame. Like, why did humanity go extinct in the 30s, in the 2030s? They preferred raping children to clear water. Prime Minister Maloney sees, and she talks about cures for pedophilia. They will not legalize pedophilia because then they will not be able to extort. The only reason they have legitimized pedophilia or made it look like they legitimized pedophilia is so that they will be able to extort and rejuvenate heads. Now, on a business level, the company that basically was an alternative to Standard Oil that said they said to people, you can choose whether you want to be with us or with Standard Oil, was the first break in the domino to fall. Because in a market that has over monopolism, choice is a blue ocean. Choice is a desired. Any company that would guarantee choice to a monopoly will have a ton of people just going out of that monopoly. We saw it in the energy. We saw it in the energy, okay, whether it's electricity, whether it's oil. We saw it in the media and communication. How many people have Telegram just because it's not WhatsApp? How many people have um, Linux just because it's not Windows? It didn't work with Pepsi that well. So with the drug industry, it doesn't work so well. However, when it's an essential, the minute people could choose to not opt for the monopoly, the pissed off customers were so happy to have an anger move. And there's nothing that says an anger move more than anything in Aries, because Aries is the I am and it's a Mars sign. Think about the Clippy Revolution. How much time, energy, and money was spent on people having a profile picture, branding, and we have big personal brands going Clippy. That's an anger economy. So think about, in fact, when we talk about entrepreneurship, one of the things, entrepreneurship or even life changes or creativity, one of the things that we ask ourselves, what makes us really pissed off? Because this is where our enterprise is at. And it has to be authentic. If you're not actually angry about that, then you're probably not going to be passionate about the alternative. Does it piss you off that there's a company that's going to be world encompassing, that the way into its dividends is being perpetually ritually abused and ritually abusing, increasingly dependent on all forms of addictions, losing one's soul and sovereignty completely, and losing one's access to water? Because the position of Algorithis is not just somebody being locked up in jail, is no access to clear water. Does it does it not piss you off that that's the situation? Because there are Googleplex people who are massively disturbed about that. Now, can you pick that bottle? Can you pick that bottle? You know, I have had a friend, and one of the things that really challenged our ability to stay in contact was every now and then we would get really pissed. And when we would get to the point of why was he really pissed, it had nothing to do with me. So why was I the target of that anger? Why not Standard Oil? Is what I'm saying. Whatever their feelings were about me, from anger, hatred to love or lust, I'm not unique. That could that could be replaced. So can Standard Oil. Replacing me is not impossible. Replacing Standard Oil would solve way more problems. Not replacing them by another monopoly. Now let's take a look at David Rockefeller natal chart. So he died 20 March 2017. Moon, Sun, new moon in Gemini. Pluto in Cancer, Pluto Saturn, which actually means a person that can go through strife. And indeed, would go through the financial depression, which with him would not be strife, but would go through sustaining through. And then accumulating big, massive wealth. But that Mercury reception between the Moon and Mercury, still in Cancer. Jupiter, 26 degrees Pisces, Chiron, 22 degrees Pisces. In fact, when Neptune was on his Chiron during COVID, there was the big COVID. Okay, and Lilith, 2 degrees Gemini, Venus better per se, sextile in Jupiter, Mars in Taurus, Uranus, Rahu, revolutionizing something to do with structure, and here is actually structure of oil through Pluto rather than through Cancer. Has to do with Cancer, Gemini. That could be JFK. Donald Trump as well has Rahu's Sun next to, yeah, next to his chart. So this is astrological vicinities. Ketu, 20 degrees Leo. Neptune, 28 degrees Cancer. Trining Jupiter. So this is one chart. Again, this person is not with us. But at that time, it would be one of the 34. Okay, the thing about Standard Oil, actually, John D. Rockefeller earned from the dissolution of Standard Oil. He didn't lose wealth. He compounded his wealth from his own company, but he didn't lose wealth. And here's the thing, the point is not to make one lose wealth. The point is to decentralize. And we get from the 1911 Act that dissolving monopolies is good for for the owners of the monopoly itself, because it allows them to maintain their wealth and compound it without the antagonism of being a monopoly. Now, what's undermined the Rockefellers is the extortion cults and the ritual goods. Now that has to do with banking as well, okay? Because um, and the closest family to the Rockefellers we know was the Rothschild. Um, and again, and then the Rothschilds that, and you know what it seems to me like it's a conglomerate of people where everybody thinks that they have to do it for the others, and and nobody, you know, nobody raises the glove to to stop doing that with extortion codes. We know that dissolving monopoly is better for business. We know that dissolving monopoly, or having more than one, having people having choice, preserves the market sector. Notice the framing in 1911. Okay, we already had a Nikola Tesla patent for free energy, which was previously invented but not patented. We basically didn't need Standard Oil to begin with. That product, if somebody would go to an investor and say, okay, we have a company that takes a shit ton of money to just produce something that destroys the entire planet, creates scarcity around everything, and basically make every single person that's associated with even profiting from it susceptible to extortion, kidnapping, assassination, death in torture. Would you like to be a part of that conglomerate? I say, what's else on? Who are the competing? Well, we have free energy made by lightning strikes, and that means that people don't actually need my product. It means I have to work and I have to invest energy to create a market. And no matter how much energy you would invest, that market wouldn't be. What do you mean? Well, it exists by people harvesting off of each other's energy and basically dragging themselves to death. Who's supposed to be that sector? just for the entertainment? Entire humanity doesn't sound like something that has a market. Okay, if we talk about investing in something that we understand in, what would a cup of water look like if I become a part of that conglomerate? Um, you'd pay a shit ton of money for it. In fact, most of your income would go to that glass of water. Would I be able to drink it? Uh, the first glass, perhaps a part of it, yes. And let's pick a random musician. To, to finish this day with. To change the tone. Um, so we will ask, how is it so? Well, if people prefer to rape children and to rape more than they prefer to drink clear water, Some people say that this is a planet of choice. Because the majority of humanity is not born into extortion cults, okay? Simply because the majority of humanity is not the elite. And elite has to extort someone. When they needed a stranglehold to dissolve, let's say, Yugoslavia, they needed to have some people raping children to cameras and being extorted to make a very big war over nothing. Is this bloodline? Is that bloodline? Who cares? um, can we have a chart in its round shape? Thank you. So, this is a musician and composer that makes a very unique avant-garde type of music. Pluto Ketu in Aries, Moon in Pisces, Uranus in the first decan of Aquarius, Saturn, Mars in Leo, Venus in Leo, Mercury in Cancer, Rahu in Venus sign, the first decan Venus in Leo. So revolutionary performance to do with music, voice. Neptune in Capricorn, and Jupiter in its home sign in Sagittarius. Chiron in Taurus, I think we are not talking. Are we talking about the same kind? Nope. I delineated this chart of a politician. Why did I get that? Conservative member of the parliament. Okay, let's look for that. If you wonder what the heck is happening, let's see the associations. Ooh! We have another. All I. So we had. Okay, so we have David Glass, an American businessman, and this is a different David Glass. There's Glass, the musician. There's the Canadian person, and then there's the CEO of Walmart. There's actually an Israeli one too. Sociologist, musician, nothing. Okay, that was just a random part of this channel. So, going back to Aries. Aries is favoring new market sectors, and it's favoring sovereignty through the act of business. Saturn is limiting this. And This limitation creates the type of anger that can change worlds. It's not the type of anger that walks with the status quo. Think about people with Saturn Aries, Mariah Carey. Okay, Mariah Carey divorced and escaped the apartment of Tani Motola. The owner of, I think it was Sony, that's Saturn in Aries. So the people that have a natal Saturn in Aries are having their Saturn returns, which means that they are going to be making bold moves that stand the test of time to assert their sovereignty in the face of seemingly impossible structure. If you think back to 1911, nobody thought that Standard Oil could stand the boundary, including John D. Rockefeller. But the anger business of Aries begs to differ. And this is what any monopoly should take into account. Never underestimate the anger of peoples whose sovereignty your business enterprise is violating, be it nature, animals, or people. The orcas and the and the orcas and yachts. um, the appraisal of, oh, they will not be able to do something about it, is always underestimating how angry they will be trying. And with Aries, and also it's underestimating how something is not something that a person or people can compromise without losing their very I am. The people that say the Me Too went too far are in practice saying they never appraised that that's a life or death for anyone. That people would throw a bomb after a bomb after a bomb after a bomb after a bomb on that. Because if the natural herbs that, by the way, kill cancer and all the wounds of radiation cannot grow because of the ritual abuse and rapes and extortion cults that manufacture and manifest the A-bombs, an A-bomb dropped in an area is at least 70 years of something that can grow. The nature itself finds it better to have an A-bomb dropping on an area than continuous pesticides on the very crops that are not allowed to grow. You know what not being allowed to grow is for Aries? And this is where people that will be rightfully angry will be reminded that those of them that chose to say things like "me too" went too far over a clear glass of water, they will be reminded what it means to have a clear glass of water. You want to have a clear glass of water? You gotta make sure that the oil is not polluting it in means of production. You gotta make sure that the actual weeds, superfood, the food that sustained humanity, is growing naturally without agrarian intervention. World hunger problem solved. You gotta make sure, because when those crops are not allowed to naturally grow, even the ecosystem logic is, well, better to drop an A-bomb. 70 years, none of these humans. Now, if it's the entire world, they can do without people. We're not unwanted here. But then you gotta understand that when children are going through ritual abuse as infants and cannot even trace to the time in their lineage where it wasn't so, that manifests all these troubles. What's the core of these troubles? Why do they rape the children? Because that creates mind-controlled slaves and dissolves their identities, make them susceptible to programming, and make sure that no matter how clear their senses, they will never have true cohesion. Because true cohesion means recovery, and recovery means true cohesion. So basically, you make sure that the science will not be science, and food will not be food, and energy will not be energy, and water will not be water. And good morning. This literally is the implication of what that means. Okay, when people go to the organic grocery store and buy food from the local market and they still don't have their minerals, those are the things that it takes now to heal from those things. That's what it takes to have a clear glass of water. Why are teeth so weird?